Hey, Leo's gone and I have stolen Windows Weekly, and I promise not to use my Mac once. Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott are here. We're going to talk reorgs. We're going to talk first rings, second rings, updates, anniversary updates, Melinda Gates' new philanthropy mission for women in tech, and a whole lot more coming right up on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly, episode 486 for October 5th, 2016. Women who love first-person shooters. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your house. Go to ring.com/WW and get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer. And by Tracker. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. Pair Tracker to your smartphone, attach it to any item, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. Visit thetracker.com right now and enter promo code WINDOWS for 30% off your entire order. And by FreshBooks, the super simple cloud accounting software that's giving thousands of freelancers and small businesses the tools to save time billing and get paid faster. Try it free at freshbooks.com/windows. All right, welcome to Windows Weekly. This is the show where we talk about everything that happened in Windows this week. Leo Laporte, of course, is on vacation. And you're probably thinking, Megan Morrone, what are you doing here? You host iOS Today. Well, I have a secret. I'm going to come out of the closet. I actually worked for Microsoft for 11 years, worked in the trustworthy computing team, and wrote some content about privacy, about security, helped with security updates. I was there every second Tuesday of the month, Patch Tuesday, although within Microsoft, they never like to call it Patch Tuesday. It's Security Update Tuesday. But all that doesn't matter because our experts here, of course, are your real hosts, Mary Jo Foley from ZDNet and Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com. Welcome, Mary Jo and Paul.
Thank you.
So
nice to have a new host for today.
Thanks. Yeah, it's Padre, of course, is the usual fill-in host, but he's off to Rome to be with his order. He's posted a picture on Twitter of this tiny little bed on a tiny little room, and he was, so excited about it. So we'll miss him, but he's doing his work. So let's get started. This week, the band, we finally found out, was confirmed that there will be no Microsoft Band 3, sadly, and they've taken it out of the Microsoft Store. I guess you can still buy one. Who wants to take this bye-bye band story?
Actually, if you don't mind. But before we do that, we should just mention we did a live show last week in Atlanta at Ignite, and we had a meetup also in Atlanta. And I just wanted to thank everybody who came out to those events. We had a nice showing at the live show. We had a great showing at the meetup as well. And it's just kind of a cool thing when people actually make the effort to come out and see you in person. And I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget to mention that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love doing the live events. It's, people come up to you and then they, say like, oh, I love watching it. It's amazing. And yeah, so you guys got to meet and talk to some of your people.
Yep.
Yeah, it was nice. It's always nice. And Atlanta was awesome, right? I mean, we had Mary Jo and I had a chance to check out some local craft breweries, so that was kind of cool, and some restaurants and stuff. And it's a beautiful place. It was really nice.
Mm. Did you wear your band while you were there?
No. No, I did not.
Do either of you still wear the band, or
no? I switched to a Fitbit this year.
Yeah, I tried it and I liked it. I mean, I feel like the design left a little bit to be desired, but it had some good features even for someone running iOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, the way I ended up on Fitbit was I read a lot of articles about Microsoft products where I say, well, this is how they might improve this for the next version. And just around the time I had written that, I don't know if I saw something about Fitbit had announced the Alta at the time or whatever, and was kind of reading through the list. I thought, man, this seems to address almost every one of the issues I had, especially battery life and, things like that. So I picked one up and I compared them, and, it doesn't do everything the band does. The band has so many sensors and is so powerful, but, the battery life is terrible. The reliability of the devices was terrible. So off we went.
Right. So, yeah, we had been kind of hearing that it was likely that Microsoft was going to pull the band and maybe not replace it. And this week we actually found out that did, in fact, happen. That they say they've sold out all their stock that they had of the band, and now they're just basically taking it off the online site, taking it off, any references to it off of Microsoft.com. And they gave me a statement this week that said we're not going to have a new band this year. They didn't go so far as to say never, but we keep hearing never. Pretty much.
Yeah, we've heard that.
Yeah.
And so this wasn't really a surprise, although didn't they say that they were going to be supporting wearable technology fully? And do you think that what they're talking about when they say wearable technology, they mean HoloLens?
It's funny because the statement they gave me this week doesn't even mention that they are continuing to look at wearables, although I do hear that they are. And I think it's kind of a stretch to call the HoloLens a wearable, but you never know how people are defining things.
It's like the luggable of wearables.
It is.
Yeah. No, we had heard separately that the work continues on wearables at Microsoft. The form of those wearables will not be another band.
Yeah.
If they ever culminate in a product at all, but it's not a band. It's some other kind of wearable or wearables.
Yeah. I don't know what it could be, but do you remember when they were doing some experiments around, I forget what they called them. They were like magnets, like that had sensors in them. And I'm like, I wonder if that could be like something you clip on your clothes or something. If they continued with that work, I don't know. But yeah, I'm curious what they are thinking, if they're thinking future wearables. A lot of people are speculating watch, but I kind of felt like they ruled against the watch when they came out with the band. Like they had decided to go more comprehensive with a fitness band that also had a watch capability, So I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, functionally, for whatever it's worth, I mean, the message I kind of always had about the band was that I really feel like they struck a nice balance between basic fitness gathering and full-blown smartwatch functionality. It was kind of the right mix from a usability perspective and also a usefulness perspective. But again, the reliability, they just never got that right. And I think they just had a tough time. I'm not sure they ever even really tried, but it seems like it never really got out to a lot of different markets. It was a very limited release for whatever reason.
And do you think it has anything to do with the fact that, you two are now Android users, you...
Gosh, no name calling.
That there's no really like Windows Mobile just has, is not something that a lot of people are using, that the majority of people are using. Do you think that has something to do with getting out of the wearable market? Because that, obviously people, Apple wants more people to buy Apple Watches so that they'll stay on the iPhone, ecosystem, and people, Android Wear, you want, to sell more Android Wear, to sell more, to keep people in the Android ecosystem. Do you think that has something to do with them backing away from the band?
I'm not sure those two things are connected, actually. Right. I think, Microsoft's strategy is these days to be the cross-platform vendor. Mm-hmm. So I think their idea they also just renamed their band app. Let me see if I get this right. It was called Microsoft Health, and they renamed it to Microsoft Band, and that's the application. So that's just meant for people who have the Microsoft Band, and for syncing up with the platform. I think they are pretty obviously going to continue their work with the Microsoft Health service, but I think the future for them is in making that health service able to connect to devices of all kinds and phones of all kinds, and not really care if you're a Windows phone user at all.
And honestly, long term, even if you're a Windows user in some ways, right? The Windows and or the PC market isn't in the dire straits as say phones are for Microsoft, but it's obviously a legacy business. Even Apple doesn't really pay much attention to the Mac. Their devices sell at a much faster clip. I think this is just the world moving on. And I think as that happens, Microsoft becomes more focused on the cloud and on the back-end services, which is where they can excel. And we're in this transition period. And so they still support their platforms, obviously. They're still updating them, obviously. And they put their mobile apps pretty much everywhere, or at least on the popular platforms. You'll see Microsoft apps on Android and iOS. But yeah, like Mary Jo said, I mean, it's kind of platform agnostic in a way. I mean, Microsoft wants you to use Microsoft solutions, but if you're going to use those on an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device, that's fine.
They just want you to use them.
They do. And, Satya Nadella for a while was being, he kept talking about cloud first, mobile first. Everybody assumed at the beginning that when he said mobile first, he meant Windows Mobile or Windows Mobiles or Windows Phone. But he, over time, kept saying, what I mean when I say that is the mobility of our platform. I'm not really talking about Windows Phone and Windows Mobile. And I think when you hear that kind of repositioning, you realize that Microsoft just wants to have their stuff somewhere. And they're being pretty, I think, what would I say, realistic about where they are in the mobile market, which is very, very low and almost non-existent at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean they'll never come back? No. I think they still think at this point that there's going to be a Surface phone. Whether you think that makes sense or not, that seems to be what they believe they are going to do at this point. So, yeah. I know.
What a huge mistake.
We still hear this is the plan as of today is at some point to come back in the market and go.
Yeah, it's like hearing Apple's going to come out with an Apple, 4E or something. It just doesn't make any sense. But
yeah, I know.
So what about other hardware? There were some leaks about a new Surface branded keyboard, possibly, and a mouse.
Yeah. So, I think it was Mary Jo that broke the story that we're not going to see a major Surface launch this year, that this will happen sometime in the spring and possibly be tied to the next major milestone for Windows 10. But on the other hand, we also have this news, or at least leaks, about kind of a minor Surface announcement. And over time, this has become a little more clear, although we're still not completely clear on it, possibly a Surface all-in-one computer. And what leaked this week through the FCC, God bless them, are some really terrible images of some not that great looking hardware, but a very large and flat iMac style, well, not iMac today, but the old Apple style keyboard where it's flat and it has that numeric keyboard off to the side, and then a rebranded Surface version of a mouse as well. And so there's some pretty clear pictures of those things. I don't see those as super exciting, but it lends some credence to the notion that you could picture these being part of a Surface all-in-one, for example.
Right. So the news we keep hearing, or I think Paul's hearing the same thing, is that even though the spring hardware launch is the one where Surface gets new device family members, probably like a Surface Book 2, a Surface Pro 5 maybe, that there still could be a fall hardware launch. Like I'm pretty sure there is going to be one later this month. And if there is, the question is, what is Microsoft going to show there from their own Surface family? So the speculation is that they could show off this rumored Surface all-in-one, and exactly what it is, is it a modular PC, because they've actually got a patent on that? Is it more like a collection of peripherals, like a new display, a keyboard, and a mouse that you can use with your existing Surface devices? We don't really know what kind of form it might take, but I still think they will show this off if they do this fall hardware launch that we keep hearing about.
Right.
Well, so speaking of launches, obviously there was a huge Google announcement yesterday. They announced their Pixel phones are made by Google phones. What does that mean for people in the Windows ecosystem?
Well, actually,
I was watching Paul tweet this. This was pretty funny.
I mean, some months ago, I have to go back and dig this up and find out exactly how I worded it, but I kind of warned Google about doing what Microsoft did already with Surface, right? When you compete directly with your own partners, bad things happen, and we're still suffering on the Windows side from the ramifications of Microsoft releasing Surface computers. Every single major PC partner of Microsoft's adopted Chromebook right after that happened. And it's hard not to see that as a more of a screw you Microsoft kind of a decision than a practical business decision, because these things have still not really taken off in a meaningful way for most of these OEMs. So Google is now doing the same thing. It's very interesting. They have and I read some of the discussions from some of the Google execs about how they're going to treat this in-house Pixel team just like they treat Samsung or whatever other partners. And okay, sure you are. It puts them in an interesting position. I'm sure, and as you might appreciate maybe from the iOS side or the iPhone side, it's not like they announced anything brand new and exciting compared to what's already out there in the world. I mean, this was almost like them kind of catching up to something that Microsoft belatedly did. And, Apple in some ways pioneered this notion that for the best experience, you have to do it all. Google described it in kind of one half of the ways in which I think of it, that to make to take the best advantage of your software, you have to have great hardware. But I think the reverse is also true. And I think that's the fundamental strength of the Apple ecosystem. And it's interesting to watch the other big platform makers kind of jump on this, but really hedge their bets because they're still doing the other thing as well. Like we don't see Apple licensing iOS to third parties.
Yeah. I read an interview today, I think it was in Bloomberg, where they were talking to Google, the Google guys about, why did you actually decide to compete with your partners? And it sounded just like the Surface to me. It was, there's room for a premium device, and we feel like we can do this, and we're going to leave the rest of the market to our partners, but we think we can take on Apple with a premium device. I'm like, wow, that is exactly what Microsoft said.
The language is astonishingly the same.
It is. I know.
It really is interesting.
Yeah. So, and again, I don't think it'll make Android partners leave because Google is doing this. Like, where are they going to go? I mean, there's nowhere for them to go, right? Apple doesn't license their operating system to other vendors, and they're not going to go to Windows Phone. So you're stuck. Like, you're still going to just stay Android if you're a partner, I think.
Yeah, for the most part. Although, Samsung has their own in-house OS that they're kind of publicly testing through a watch or whatever. But yeah, we'll see how this happens. I mean, for Microsoft or for Microsoft customers as well, I mean, Android is important on a number of levels because as the mobile fortunes kind of fall apart over the Microsoft side, there's this semi-open platform where if you want to, for whatever reason, you can replace the lock screen, the launchers, all of the main apps, or most of the main apps, not all of them, but with Microsoft solutions. And you can install apps on an iPhone, of course, but you really can't replace as much of the system on that side of the fence as you can on Android. And so you kind of watch this stuff with some interest, and you have to wonder if Google will try to lock down Android a little bit further and avoid the problems that Microsoft had with its partners, and if Google's going to have antitrust issues as well, which it appears they're going to. And we know on the Microsoft side how badly that can impact things. I mean, the world that we exist in today is caused, in some ways because Apple and Google make great products and services, obviously, but part of it too is that Microsoft was shackled for literally a decade and couldn't do much about it. It would be interesting to see that happen to Google.
So, Paul, I know you ordered the 32 gigabyte Pixel XL, probably coming in October. What about you, Mary Jo? Did you order one of the Pixels? I
did not. I'm kind of happy with my Nexus 6P, and it's pretty new to me. I got it in the spring of this year, so I'm like, I feel like in many ways I'm like, do I need an upgrade to a phone? No. And I'm very cheap and practical, unlike Paul, who has them all.
You're right. A spendthrift and impractical. No, that's fair. I mean, it's absolutely fair.
Right. You have four pockets on your pants. You should fill them with Android phones.
With phones.
Well, I will justify this by saying I'm going to write about it and review it and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious about it, obviously. I mean, what they said was very interesting. I liked some of the messaging. It's interesting what they didn't say. They didn't talk about some camera spec features that I think are actually kind of important, which don't exist. There's some questions around a lot of the device, and so I'm just kind of curious to actually experience it and see how it compares. I have a Nexus 6P as well, and I think anyone who owns such a device is in has no reason to upgrade at this point, obviously.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about the router that they announced.
Yeah. The little the rice cooker thing that.
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks like a little a couple of frisbees stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah, like something you heat tortillas in or keep them warm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like a mesh wireless networking, right? So that's something you probably wouldn't need where you are now, but this is certainly an issue. I don't have a particularly big house, but it's just kind of an old house. And so when you're on the far end of the house, the router, which actually you might be able to even see behind me, doesn't reach, certain portions of the house. We've been looking into things like, we did a little bit of Ethernet networking just to kind of get that going, but also the possibility of maybe something like, what do you call it? Power-based network extension or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think these mesh networks, they're not only, covering your whole house, blanketing your whole home with Wi-Fi, but they're also pretty. They're nice. They're something that, you would put out on the, on the counter and not try to hide like, we used to with our ugly black routers.
Plus, apparently we're going to be walking around a house like crazy people talking to these things, or at least to those other devices. That's like the next step in our devolution as humans. We just talk to the air.
Yeah, when I saw them talk about Google, what do they call it? Google Assistant or Google Home?
Google Home.
Google Home is the device.
Yeah. So it does make me wonder why Microsoft hasn't done this, and I kind of go back and forth. Like, of course they're not going to do it. They're focusing more on the enterprise now, but in some ways, I'm like, it just seems weird that Microsoft hasn't come out with something like this with Cortana. Because now now Amazon's got Alexa and Google has this. It's like, what about Microsoft?
Well, couldn't you use your Xbox? I mean, do you think maybe Xbox is where they're going to?
You can, but it's such a ponderous way to do that, right? It's even the new one is kind of a big, expensive box. It's only in the one room. I think one of the neat things that Google is doing is working toward that kind of pervasive computing idea where it doesn't matter where you are in the house, you just talk and one of them will pick it up. I think they need an appliance. I think they need something attractive like this. You might want to put one in the kitchen, put one out in the living room, put one upstairs, whatever. I think that's the way to go. I'd love to see Microsoft do something like this.
I've heard no leaks or any possible mentions about this. Even when they announced that you could use Cortana above the lock screen with Windows 10, I was like, okay, maybe they're setting up to come out with something like this. But if they do, it'll be a total surprise to me, anyway.
Yeah. That'd be a neat thing for them to announce at that hardware event. But I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these devices are important for a lot of reasons because, Cortana is good, Siri is okay, but I think a lot of the problems with all of these voice assistants is that, we try once, it doesn't work, and so we have our phone, we just pick it up. But all of these devices, the Alexa or the Home, you don't have any other way to input, so you just have to keep talking to it until it works and you've already paid for it. So, it makes it somehow easier. I know that with my Amazon Alexas, I have 2 of them, that, I talk to it more because it's the only way that I can get it to work and I want it to work.
Sure. And there's I'm sure this will change over time, but there's no elegant handoff. You might want to start a conversation in your home with whatever device and then continue that as you go out into the world, because maybe what you're doing is getting directions to a place or, booking a movie or whatever it might be. And, it's not always something you want to complete right there in that one place. I sort of, I sort of speculated this morning about this kind of topic. When you think about where Microsoft is heading, how it might make more sense for them to be the back end for something else. Like you said, Siri's not very good because Apple made a decision that they wanted all of the processing to be local, that the thing would be on your device. It wouldn't be part of this giant kind of privacy-sucking cloud network like Google and Microsoft and probably Amazon want to do. Maybe Microsoft could be a great partner for a company like Apple, where Apple has great devices and a great customer base. And Microsoft has this cloud infrastructure and machine learning and AI capabilities that would really benefit something like Siri.
Exactly. So anything else from the Google event that is worth talking about?
I think the push on AI is an interesting thing to talk about because it's always the case, I think, that once one vendor starts talking up something, they all start talking about it. Like last week at Ignite, Microsoft was talking extensively about artificial intelligence and adding it to all different parts of the ecosystem, their apps, their services. And now this week we hear Google talking about its assistant as, we're adding AI to everything, and AI is the centerpiece of our strategy. It's really, once one does it, here comes the rest of them all talking the same thing. So the question is, who has the best kind of and most comprehensive platform when they talk about AI? I mean, to some extent, you can say every one of these voice assistants like Siri, Cortana, and Alexa, and now Google Assistant are AI, right? But Microsoft made the point at Ignite last week. They said, yeah, we have Cortana, but we also have other pieces of the AI strategy, our bots, what we're doing with servers, with field programmable gate arrays, to make that part of the backend infrastructure that's kind of turning Azure into a supercomputer is what they called it. So I just thought it was an interesting thing that they really were pushing on that at their launch this week.
Everyone is, it's funny. And Megan probably has a better grasp on this than I do, but I noticed at that Apple event for the iPhone 7 that the term machine learning came up a couple of times. And I thought, that doesn't seem like the type of thing Apple would talk about a lot. But it's almost like they were trying to just remind people that they were a big part of this thing that's happening, like you said, across the industry, that, Siri is not just about, asking, whether it's raining outside, whether you can see, in fact, it is literally raining outside, that it is part of this bigger kind of computer science effort around, machine learning and artificial intelligence. I thought that was kind of an interesting shift for what is clearly like a consumer type event as well, that they were positioning it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think machine learning is a huge buzzword. You hear it everywhere. I mean, you're starting to hear it in nonsense areas like your soap is going to be advanced with machine learning. And obviously
it's almost like cloud computing.
Yes, exactly. And it's a kinder, gentler way to say AI, and I'm sure that's why Apple uses that instead of AI, where you imagine like kill all humans, that sort of thing. Well, we are going to talk about Windows 10 anniversary updates. We are going to talk about some changes at Microsoft. We've got a lot more to talk about, but first I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor of the show, Ring, the Ring Video Doorbell. I have a Ring at home. It's super helpful to know when my family is coming and going, or when someone who is not my family is coming or going in my house when I'm not there. It's a perfect piece of hardware for me. There's a home burglary every 13 seconds. Most burglaries happen in broad daylight. Burglars will ring your doorbell to make sure you're away before they break in. Ring Video Doorbell has been proven to stop burglaries before they happen. It allows you to see and speak to anyone approaching your door just using your smartphone. Now, Ring is using their advanced motion detection technology to protect your entire property with their Ring of Security kits. The kits include the Ring Video Doorbell and may include a stick-up cam, solar panel chime, or a solar security sign. Pro kits include a Slim Video Doorbell Pro with crystal clear 1080p HD video and night vision. It's hardwired and it never needs to charge. You plug the chime into any standard power outlet to know when you have a visitor, even if your phone is way in another room. The illuminated solar security sign deters intruders before they get to your door. The Ring Video Doorbell and Stick-Up Cam install in just a few minutes. They are super easy. My 11-year-old twins installed ours when I wasn't even home. They did a perfect job. It's very easy. Working together, these two things, the Stick-Up Cam and the Ring Video Doorbell, provide 24/7 monitoring of your entire home, whether you're just sitting in your living room and you don't want to get up off the couch, or if you're thousands of miles away. And now you can connect your Ring Video Doorbell with your favorite smart locks and hubs for added convenience, monitoring, and security. This is great if you have a family, if you have a lot of people working on your house coming and going, if you get a lot of packages that you want to make sure that no one is taking off your doorstep. If you have parents that you're caring for remotely and you want to know who's coming and going from their house, if they have mobility issues and don't want to get up off the couch and you can see who's coming and going, or they can. Join the millions of homeowners who protect their home with Ring. For a limited time, Windows Weekly listeners can get up to $150 off one of their Ring of Security kits. Go to ring.com/WW. That's ring.com/WW. And we thank Ring for their support of Windows Weekly. All right, so Windows 10 anniversary updates are giving people some trouble. Which one of you wants to talk about these troubles?
These woes. I can start. This was a cumulative update that Microsoft pushed out last week to people who are on the RTM version of anniversary. So not insiders, right? This is like normal people like me. And this is I think the sixth or maybe the seventh cumulative update that Microsoft has pushed to people who have the RTM build since it came out on August 2nd. So we've just been getting these, every few weeks, sometimes every week. It's just a bunch of fixes. There's no new features in these builds. And so I got it. I saw it. I installed it. I didn't have a problem. Suddenly I'm on Twitter and everybody's like, wow, not everybody. Okay. Many people started pinging me saying, I'm in this endless loop on this cumulative update. I can't get out of it. Like it's trying to install, it won't, and then it keeps trying over and over and over. So there is this installation issue that is impacting some people who are on the RTM build and not everybody. It's another one of these cases like the Kindle and like the PowerShell DSC bug where it's not, and the webcams that have all happened to people on the anniversary update. It's not everybody, it's some people, and we don't know how many people. But right now, Microsoft is saying they are acknowledging this is an issue and they're working on a fix to it. Meanwhile, some people have come up with their own fix, which involves actually editing the registry of Windows 10. I would say if you're a normal like me, you probably should not go in there and be editing the registry. Don't do this at home unless you're a competent person. Like many people listening to this show would be able to do that. People like me, no. Or I probably could, but I should not. So, I know my limitations. We don't have a date. Originally, the date for this fix was going to be this week, early. Like I think it was even going to be yesterday, but now Microsoft's just saying it's coming soon. I don't think it's out yet, as far as I know. Paul, what about you? Did you have this happen?
No, early on, it seemed like this might have been an AMD issue, but that's clearly not the case, and it's really not clear, who this is impacting, like what the what the cause is or whatever.
I've heard,
when you were talking about people.
Sorry. Did you hear I heard from some people saying the theory is if you ever ran a preview build on your machine and then got out of the preview program and then we're running RTM on that same machine, that it hit you.
Sure. If you install this build under a pale moon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Mary Jo, you said that this is triggering a round of what's the point of insider testing questions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this update went out to people who are on the slowest preview ring last week, right before it went out to everybody. So I saw some people were complaining who were in the insider preview who got the slow ring update with this cumulative update saying, guys, watch out. There's something wrong where it keeps looping. And so then Microsoft did push it out to RTM. That made some people in the insider program and some people watching this say, okay, wait, the insider program was warning you guys that this was an issue and you still did this. Again, we don't know how widespread it was or how many insiders were reporting that was happening to them. So it makes actually blaming anyone or pointing fingers a little difficult if you want to be fair. I don't know why. I don't know what Microsoft's criteria is, like how many people in the insider preview ring have to say, wait a minute, before they'll say, oh, wait, we shouldn't push push this out. I don't know. I don't know if they have a set number or how long they wait or how they gather the telemetry. Like those are all kind of mysterious things for us. So I don't know why they did not react to what was being reported by the insiders.
And then Windows 10 Insider Preview build 14931. 14931.
Welcome to our world. Yep.
They really should come up with some more Apple-like names for the preview builds.
I'm kind of glad they're using numbers because at least you can figure out, like, okay, is this more recent than the one I just saw go out?
Right. It's like not Sierra or Yosemite. Like you have no idea which comes first. But yes, 14931, you know.
Yeah. Right.
So 931 is not actually the most recent Insider Preview build, but this is the one that just went out to slow ring. Mm-hmm. In other words, this is the one like 2 builds ago, if you will, from the one that fast ring testers are using. You have no idea how complex it is to keep track of this.
I know. It's really complicated. It is.
Is it better to be on fast ring or slow ring?
Define better.
I'm not on any ring.
Is it better to be on a rocket heading for the atmosphere, or is it better to be in a comfortable car? I don't know. Depends on your mood.
If you're a risk taker and you want to be on the cutting edge, I'd say fast ring.
I'll tell you what being on the cutting edge could buy you. On both my desktop computer and my Surface Book, I use my desktop as a scratch space, which I think a lot of people do. You keep documents there as you're working on them, and then maybe you file them or throw them away when you're done. And what I'm getting is kind of weird. They're not the original files, but they're empty files with the same file names just start reappearing on the desktop. And so you can delete them and they come back. You can put them into a folder and they come back. You can move them over to some other part of the desktop, and then obviously you're okay. It's making me slightly crazy, and so I've already wiped out the Surface Book. I spent a good part of a day doing that, and just today, it has happened enough where I decided when this show's over, I'm going to wipe this thing out too. I just can't take it anymore, and that's, the type of thing that happens when you're on a known not good early version of something where there are no promises, and that's what can happen. Yeah.
Well, if you can't take it anymore, I wonder how the normals feel.
Well, yeah. And actually, to the previous point, since the anniversary update shipped at the beginning of August, this has been kind of unprecedented. In fact, you could probably go back and find the show a week or two in where we were talking about how great everything was going. We haven't heard a lot of complaints from users, which was true because at the time, what we didn't understand was that Microsoft was really slowly rolling this out only to known good configurations. What's happened over time is we've seen more and more problems, and it's getting to be a little strange. It's the insider preview stuff. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm just, I've reached my breaking point with, as far as day to day goes, but it's fine. But this stuff goes out to the public, and it's not working. People with Kindles were having problems. People with a certain webcam were having problems. Now we've got this cumulative update. We have no idea what the cause is, but some people are having problems, and I wish they could. Wish they could figure it out. It's October, right? So it's been a few months. I mean, it seems odd. Like I don't think we had this kind of problem with the previous 2 releases of Windows 10.
Yeah, I'm glad they're updating it to try to fix it, but it also does make for some instability, right? Like I feel. And this just may be completely unrelated, but after I applied this latest cumulative update, the touchpad on the HP Spectre is working way worse for me. And maybe that has absolutely nothing to do with it, but you start wondering because you're like, I'm always updating the software. Everything was good, and now something is wrong. So was it because of the software? Is it because of a driver? Is it because of something else? Is it because I'm pressing the button differently? I don't know. And it just kind of builds up in your mind.
By the way, though, what you just said is really interesting. You are blaming yourself.
I am.
I mean, in other words, your initial reaction is obviously I have done nothing wrong. But I mean, at some point, and you said earlier, well, I don't want to point fingers. I'll point some fingers. I mean, this is coming from Microsoft. I mean, this should work. It's unbelievable that this is happening. It's October. I mean, we've had so many problems with this. How is it possible we're still having problems with this thing?
Well, I I haven't looked back, and that's actually a good idea to do. I know they did do a bunch of cumulative updates after the previous two versions. Like the original July version, there were a bunch of cumulative updates to that. I don't know how many. And then I remember after November, there were several cumulative updates to that also. It feels like this is the way it's going to be from now on. It doesn't feel like it's because it's broken. It feels like this is how they're going to do it. Like they're going to designate something RTM, and then they're just going to keep patching it until they say, okay, now it's pretty stable.
So yes, I mean, in fact, I sort of remember joking last fall, about the 117th release of the November update. Remember, they would do those incremental builds for a long, long time. But I think the big difference between this release and the November update from last year is just the sheer amount of publicity and people in the public experiencing these problems. Like, in other words, I'm sure those updates they put up before fixed something, but it didn't seem like it was a big deal. This time, it seems like we're really seeing a lot of complaining and a lot of actually serious issues.
Well, I saw this story last week, but I couldn't quite wrap my mind around the importance of it. There's a reorg at Microsoft in the Application Services Group. Mary Jo, what can you tell us about this?
So this was kind of a big surprise to a lot, I'd say most, if not all of us Microsoft watchers. Right after Ignite ended, Microsoft announced the next day that Chi Lu, who's one of the 3 executive vice presidents at the company, was going to be stepping down. And Chi Lu is the guy who has been running the Office and Bing team for the past several years. He came to Microsoft from Yahoo. The word is that he was in a very serious biking accident and he's having trouble recovering. So I'm actually here in Seattle this week for the GeekWire conference. That's why I'm in a hotel room today. And I've been asking around, and it sounds like he was in a very serious accident and possibly broke his hip in this biking accident. Yeah. But what's crazy is people I know who work at Microsoft, and not everybody sees the executive vice presidents every day, but everyone's like, wow, I didn't even know something happened to him. He seemed to be coming into the office and nobody seemed to, or no one knew he wasn't coming into the office. So this kind of hit everybody out of the blue, like, wow, he was in a biking accident and now he's leaving. He's an interesting guy because I had heard a lot of talk that he and Satya Nadella were very, very close, and I believe they are very close. Some people had even speculated Nadella might be looking to move him into a higher level position or kind of more of a direct role where he would be working hand in hand with him. So for him to suddenly be gone is pretty significant. Microsoft did say after he recovers, he's going to come back in an advisory role to Nadella and Gates, but it's not clear how active he'll be in that role or what that exactly looks like. So that was kind of a shock. And then they took his division and kind of split it in half. They took all the Bing and the Cortana team, they moved them in with Microsoft Research and created a new combined AI and research group. And they took the part of the team that was Office and they put that under a guy who is also a long-term Microsoft guy, Rajesh Jha, who I think at one point was running Exchange at Microsoft. Now he has all of the Office applications and Skype as well. So Gurdeep Paul, who Paul and I have both recently been speaking with, is gone.
I mean, I love that guy. That's sad.
I think he's still going to stay at Microsoft, although I haven't heard definitively what his new job will be, Gurdeep Paul. So the Skype team is rolling into the main Office team, and Rajesh Jha is taking that entire team and now running that. So it is a pretty big deal. That Office and Bing team is kind of like the quiet team out of the 3. You've got the Windows and Devices team under Terry Myerson. You've got Cloud and Enterprise under Scott Guthrie. And then you had this Applications and Services group under Chi Lu. And that was kind of like the mysterious team, especially the Bing part. You never really heard a lot about, like, what are those guys doing? I mean, they're running the search engine, but they're doing a lot more than that. They are very instrumental to what Microsoft's doing in artificial intelligence. So, yeah. It's a very big change, and it was just kind of like out of the blue. No, I don't think anybody had a leak on it, or maybe just like the night before, Recode heard that Chi Lu may be stepping down for some reason. So yeah, it was pretty big. A big change.
So the first bike crash to affect 5,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
I made that observation last week.
Yeah.
So this one, it was a surprise, but there was a big reorg. I remember when Ted, I'm losing my mind. When Turner, I forgot his first name.
Kevin Turner. Yep.
Kevin Turner, thank you.
Yep.
Not Ted Turner.
Not Ted Turner.
When Kevin Turner left Microsoft, they used that opportunity, or Satya Nadella did, to push out this massive reorg, which I got the feeling was something they had been planning to do for quite some time. They were just kind of waiting for him to do his thing. In this case, I guess this seems more like it was maybe forced on them. I don't get the feeling that they wanted Chi-Lu out, or do you not think that's the case?
So I this is pure speculation on my part. Chi-Lu, from everybody I've talked to at Microsoft, is seen as this amazing, super diligent, super smart, very forward-thinking guy. Like, everybody who knows him is just like, wow, he was amazing. The part that I wondered about is the smartest and most amazing and hardest workers are not always the guy you want to be the manager or the woman you want to be the manager. To be the manager, you've got to have a whole other set of skills, and you've got to be willing to do a lot of things that kind of you might see as a waste of time if you're an engineer and you want to be coding or whatever, right? So I totally do not know that this was a way to kind of move him out, and a lot of people would balk at that suggestion. But I do wonder if he wanted to be the manager. It's like being an editor versus a reporter, right? Not every reporter makes a good editor because you have to do a lot of things that aren't necessarily germane to reporting. So I don't know if it was that kind of a case or not, but it's an interesting thing to speculate on.
Yeah, being an engineer versus being a manager of people too. I mean,
yeah,
he probably had deeper concerns than worrying about HR stuff and whatever else he had to do.
Right.
Okay,
right.
That's interesting.
So what does it usually mean when someone is going to come back as an advisor, but not any other role?
That they're not coming back.
Or you are you're like Bill Gates, and he is an advisor, right? So he does some reviews, he consults with the board, he consults with people at Microsoft, but it's not like you're there every day full time.
So it's like that Silicon Valley, like you're on top of the building, like eating
on
pizza.
The roof.
Yeah, on the roof.
Microsoft has those guys. They have names like, technical fellow, and you're just allowed to kind of you glide 6 inches off the floor and you impart wisdom. It's a nice gig.
Yeah. No, I mean, if he did come back as like a tech fellow, those guys do have a lot of leeway, like Jeffrey Snover and Mark Russinovich. They can decide they want to work on certain projects, they want to work on a team or not work on a team. They have a lot of options. They can be, I forget what they call it, like an individual contributor, I think is what they call it, where they just kind of do what they want and contribute to the company in various projects and ways, or they can come in and be on a team, right?
Maybe he could become a V-Dash employee.
Oh, gee. Like Megan.
That old V-Dash. V-Dash was, one step ahead of A-Dash. Like A-Dash was the ones that they let you go every 8 months.
Okay. I don't think I've never dealt with an A-Dash employee, but I've dealt with many V-Dashes.
Yeah. There's also B, like the letter B-Dash too, I think, right? I forget what the B-Dash is.
I don't know.
Sanitation services.
Yeah, it was one of the ridiculous things about working for Microsoft. Like the A-Dashes really, because, they were afraid of getting in trouble. They got sued for all the, freelancers who never had stock options. So like the A-Dashes would literally only be able to work a certain amount of months and then they'd have to leave. And it was like, if there was a worse way to have continuity on a team like that, please tell me about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about Outlook.com. I'm a fan of Outlook on my iPhone. You have, Paul, reviewed the new Outlook.com. What do you think of it?
I love it. I mean, I waited about 19 months to get it, from the moment they announced it. But
I'm glad you like it at least. I was worried you were going to get it and say, what, I wish I had old Outlook.com.
I had to break out Office 360. If you have a business version of Office 365, the web version of that product is now called Outlook on the Web. And this new version of Outlook.com, which is the consumer version, which used to be Hotmail, is now very much like Outlook on the Web, right? And I know it shares the same infrastructure, but from just a user experience standpoint, it's it's the same product, right? And so that's kind of neat. You get some features that we've had Office 365 for a while, the ability to pop out windows, the clutter service and things like that, add-in capabilities, and that's nice. But I don't use the web interface for Outlook on the web all that much. I'm actually not a big fan of Outlook, the big client, like Outlook 2016 on Windows. I am a huge fan of Outlook on mobile. The Windows Phone version is pretty great, but the version on Android and iOS is excellent. And the same guys are responsible for all of these products now. They're going to make them work more consistently across platforms and all that kind of stuff. And so Megan probably doesn't know too much about this, but I had a running gag for many months about not getting the new Outlook.com. So I was actually a little surprised when it happened, because I figured clearly I'm the last human being on earth that's ever going to get this, because they announced it in, I think it was May 2015.
Last May, yep.
Yeah. It's been a long time. So
I know.
You
aren't the last one, though.
No,
I
still hear from people
who have not got it.
Yeah.
They were trying to make it perfect just for you, Paul.
They were.
Yes. No, it works great. I like it. The only thing I don't like about it, I have been using it, and as anyone who uses this stuff on the web knows, they built Skype into it, and so you can't actually turn that off. And so if Mary Jo or you guys call me on Skype, I get this notification sound that comes from the browser, because I've got Outlook.com open, and it's a terrible sound. It's like this weird, it's like a whap, it's got this kind of whap, it's just so as I'm having conversations with people, I'm getting notifications in the background from the web, and it's just this accompaniment to the typing, which is just cringe inducing. But other than that, it's great.
I have somehow turned it off, and I don't know how I have.
Are you serious? Oh, tell me how to do this, please.
And you know what? I remember when I did it, I was like, oh, there is a way. And now I'm looking in the settings, like, how did I do it? But I don't want to open Skype in Outlook, because I'm scared that will turn it on.
Exactly. Yep.
It should be way easier, I remember. However, I figured it out. It was like so convoluted. I was like, wow, couldn't they just make this easier? But they won't, because the idea is to always make Skype front and center and make you always be signed into Skype.
I saw there's a way to mute ringing, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
Can't do it permanently. It's I'll look again, but
yeah. If anyone in the chat room who's listening knows, tell us, because
if there's a way to do this.
I did, and I'm scared to try to undo what I did, because I don't want to turn it back on.
I know. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to touch it. It's like, it's fine. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like a little demon in the back of my computer.
I know.
Well, we are going to talk about some Microsoft and Salesforce bickering. We're going to get some Q&A. And I also want to ask you guys, I do not think you talked about this last week, but I wanted to ask you what you thought of Melinda Gates' new philanthropy mission on women in tech. So I'll ask you guys. But first, I wanted to thank Tracker. They are a sponsor of this episode. Here is the Tracker. It's a tiny device. I use one on our family drone, our family dog, and my keys to find all these things that often get lost for very different reasons. This episode, of course, is brought to you by Tracker. Smart cars, smart phones, smart homes. Technology has made everything smart, but when we lose stuff, it still makes us feel less than smart. I lose things all the time. I just don't have enough time I don't have enough space in my brain, and my phone, before Tracker, did not have an app that could help me find all these things, and it's great that I have it now. It's a coin-sized device, locates misplaced keys. You can put it in your wallet. You can put it in your bag. You can stick it on your computer. Just in seconds, just pair Tracker to your smartphone, attach it to any item, and find its precise location with a tap of a button. If you lose your phone, press the Tracker button. Your phone will ring, even if it's on silent. You can also customize two-way separation alerts, so you're notified before you forget your item. With over 1.5 million devices, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world, so your lost item shows up on a map even if it is miles away. The Tracker app records your lost item's last known location on a map. When another Tracker user comes within a 100-foot range of your item, you will receive a GPS update of your item's location. You can also get a picture put on your Tracker. The one I showed before is the Twit one. You can get your picture, your dog's picture on the Tracker. Really, it's only up to your imagination what you can put on that tracker or what you can put that tracker on. So go to thetracker.com and never lose your possessions again. Plus, just for you guys, just for our audience, if you enter promo code WINDOWS, you'll get 30% off your entire order. That's TheTracker.com, promo code WINDOWS for 30% off your entire Tracker order. And we thank Tracker for their support of Windows Weekly. Okay, so Microsoft and Salesforce, they've gone, you say, from frenemies to just plain old enemies. What happened this week? What did Salesforce do to stir the LinkedIn pot?
So I'm blaming Mark Benioff here for this, the head of Salesforce. He tweeted last week and also, I believe, spoke on Bloomberg TV saying the same thing, that he believes that Microsoft should be brought up on anti-competitive charges with the EU and not be allowed to buy LinkedIn, because he says Microsoft's going to withhold access to LinkedIn data from other companies. I went back and looked at the tweet stream that he did on this, and it was interesting because he pointed to a Scott Guthrie interview that he had done at a tech conference, and he said, look, he just said right there that Microsoft's not going to let their rivals have the data. It wasn't so clear cut, actually. Guthrie was just kind of boasting, saying, hey, we're going to have this amazing advantage out there, because we're going to have this LinkedIn data and we can bring it into all these products that we're building once the deal goes through. I took it as more competitive bluster, like all the tech vendors do when they're talking about their rivals. Then I took it as, hey, we're going to withhold the data from everybody. I didn't take it that way. A couple days later, Microsoft came out and they said, our intention is not to withhold the data and we're going to make it available. So I don't know, Mark. I think what's really interesting to me about all of this is, I don't know if you all remember this, but 2 years ago, Microsoft created a partnership with Salesforce. It was a huge announcement. They had Nadella on stage with Benioff saying, now that Satya Nadella has taken over Microsoft, we're in a whole new world. We're best buddies. And that Steve Ballmer guy wasn't so great, but Nadella is amazing. And then they announced all these integrations with Salesforce and Microsoft. Since then, the partnership has really been unraveling bit by bit. There was talk that Microsoft was going to buy Salesforce at one point, and it felt like once that deal did not come to fruition, the two became enemies again, and there was a lot of sniping back and forth. Salesforce had said they were going to go Azure, and they ended up going AWS for a lot of their cloud hosting. It's just been kind of cantankerous, and this was just like, okay, do you guys even have a partnership anymore? Are you guys even talking to each other anymore, or have you decided now that Microsoft's not going to buy Salesforce, that it's over? And it really does feel like the partnership has dissolved, and Microsoft has decided they're going to go head to head with them. Not that they were totally caving to them before, but I think Nadella had said we want to work with Salesforce because they're the biggest and best CRM platform, which if you worked on the Dynamics CRM team at Microsoft probably felt kind of bad to hear. So yeah, it's really like the gloves have come off and the two companies don't seem so friendly. I was here in Seattle this week at the GeekWire conference. Peggy Johnson, who's the head of partnerships at Microsoft, was asked about the Salesforce thing and just like, hey, what's going on with you guys in Salesforce? She's like, oh, I've been getting a lot of texts from Mark Benioff and we've been texting back and forth, and yeah, we're still partners with them. And I was thinking, wow, tough way to partner. Your partner is trying to get you to have to give back on the LinkedIn deal because they are mad they missed out on the LinkedIn deal. Salesforce bid for LinkedIn also. They actually bid more money than Microsoft bid, and LinkedIn went with Microsoft. So some hard feelings, I think.
Sour grapes. It sounds.
Sour grapes. Yeah.
What do you think, Paul?
I got nothing. I found it amusing. It's funny. It's really easy to make accusations. Microsoft can come out just publicly and say, yeah, we're not going to do that. And I think that's the end of the story. And so I like Mary Jo said, it seemed like this was kind of a Cold War for a little while, and now it's
it's a hot war.
Yeah.
Well, I was at Dreamforce yesterday just for the day, and there wasn't a huge representation by Microsoft. I've never been before, so I don't know if there was big before and different this year. But yeah, I didn't see a lot.
I think they went last year for the first time ever, didn't they? Was that last year, or maybe I'm misremembering
was
that?
It? Yeah, I can't remember either. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a little bit like sour grapes.
It kind of does.
Before we get to the listener Q&A, I don't think that you guys covered this. Forgive me if you did cover it. But Melinda Gates, of course, of the Gates Foundation, is stepping out sort of on her own under the Gates Foundation, but really just trying to fix the women in technology problem. She says that she's gone to all these other places, and they've obviously been doing their philanthropy for years and going to all these other countries, and then seeing the problems there, and then coming back to the United States and saying like, hey, things are not really changing that much here in terms of gender pay equity and just the problem, getting the leaky pipeline, getting women in tech and then keeping them there. And she says she's going to use the same thing that has worked with the Gates Foundation, like data. That's what she says. Put it through and figure out how to solve this problem that is very emotional for some, and also doesn't seem to have any solutions right now. What do you guys think about this?
Obviously,
we didn't talk about it. You should just go for it. Right. You're the expert.
I'm outnumbered 2-1 here. It's obviously women in tech is not a problem.
Mary Jo, you're a chick. You talk about it.
I'm a geek girl. Yeah, so this to me was really interesting, Melinda Gates doing this. I think a lot of people forget that Melinda Gates was working at Microsoft before she ended up as Gates's wife. Right. She was the product manager on Microsoft Bob. I don't know if people know that or remember that, but kind of interesting. And she held a number of other roles at Microsoft too. So this is a cause very near and dear to her heart, obviously. I think it's great that she's doing this because as she pointed out, when she graduated from college in the 80s, there were more women getting computer science degrees then than there are now. And the question is why? I mean, why now? Because there's so many more roles for women that potentially could be interesting to women, even women without tech degrees, to get involved in this industry, which is a well-paying industry. So I like it that she's putting her attentions on this. I think it's interesting that one of the things she called out when she decided to do this was she thinks there are some perception problems because of the male-dominated fields in tech, like the gaming industry. Like she called out the gaming industry specifically. And this has been something I know a lot of people who've been trying to figure out the women in tech problem have thought about, like if we make games that aren't just first-person shooter games like Paul Thurrott loves, would that open tech to more
Why
women?
Would we do that?
Right, see, I knew I'd have to bait you a little to get you to go. Right. But, the idea is, what if we made games that appeal to people who didn't care about first-person shooters? And yes, there are some women who love first-person shooter games, and there are some men who do not love them. But I think it is kind of a perception. Yeah, I think it is true. I think it is.
I love the women that love first-person shooters. I'm just throwing that out there.
So I'll be curious what she comes up with. It's something everybody's tried to, quote, solve, like this problem, like how do you get more women to go into tech? And I feel like even in our field, in our reporting field, there aren't that many women tech reporters. There are more than when I started 30 years ago. I was like one of very few who were at Microsoft events, I can tell you. And there are more
Still
now.
Are.
Right, but there's still not many, right? There aren't that many.
No, it's got to be 10-1. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, at Dreamforce yesterday, that's the thing. Like I hadn't been to a conference in a while, and I went to the restroom, and there's a really long line for the men's restroom. Nobody waiting for the women's restroom. And it's like, that's the only place that ever happens. I'm like, I forgot. And then, of course, like Salesforce, upstairs they have, unisex bathrooms. So then there's lines in both because there's so many men there.
Right. Yep. I mean, and there are some parts of the field that it's even worse. Like, I feel like operating systems and tools and that kind of thing, there's fewer women than there are in like social media and design. And the question is why? And what can you do to kind of right that balance or make a case for why you should right that balance? I'm surprised sometimes when I go to Microsoft now because I remember when I started covering Microsoft a number of years ago, you'd go to the Windows team and you'd see almost no women, like none. I mean, like if you saw one, you'd just be like, whoa, there's a woman. And now when you go to the Windows group, especially Windows Server too, there are a lot more women working there now than there used to be. So that's a positive. But yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement, I would say.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what is next? We have do we have listener Q&A today?
Yeah, we could do a little. I've got news for Paul here. Gardner Von Holt says on Twitter, we're going back to the Outlook.com and how to shut off Skype.
Yeah.
Try clicking on the picture of yourself at the top right of the menu bar and choose sign out of IM. Give that a whirl. I don't remember if that works, but that could be your solution.
Somebody showed me what they have under notifications, and they have different options than I do, by the way, that would turn off notifications.
Oh, weird. Weird.
But I will try that. I am trying that, I should say.
Yep. But yeah, if there's anyone listening
no, it
live.
logged me out of Outlook.com.
Oh, no. Oh, well, that's an idea.
I was wondering if that's what that was.
Anyone listening live or in the chat room, Megan can see the chat room.
I can.
If you have anything you want to ask.
There's someone asked a question earlier, but it scrolled by before I could get it. So if you're in the chat room, ask your question again, and I will get to that. But should we do the tip of the week while we're waiting for questions to come in?
Sure.
Okay. Cortana Insights with sticky notes?
Yeah, this one's a little funny. You know, as part of the anniversary update, Microsoft added a major new feature to Windows 10 called the Windows Ink Workspace. And it's basically just a start menu for the ink-enabled experiences that are built into Windows 10. And some of them are brand new. There's a sketchpad. There's a way to take screenshots and then draw on the screenshots. And then some of them have been around for quite a while, like obviously apps like Edge and Maps and so forth are pen-enabled. They've been in Windows for a while, but now they're pen-enabled, so they're in there. And then there's this Sticky Notes app, which I never really use, but you know we all know what Sticky Notes are, and it works just like Sticky Notes. The fun thing about Sticky Notes in Windows 10 when you get the anniversary update is that they're actually connected to Cortana. And so depending on what you type or write into them, you can actually benefit from what they call Cortana Insights. So for example, if you use like a date-related word like do something tomorrow or something similar to that, it will actually ask if you want to create, or I should say it actually makes a blue link, and then you can click that or press on that or tap on that, and it will ask if you want to make a Cortana reminder. So it's kind of a cool way to do that kind of thing where you might be taking notes and you might naturally want to turn that thing into a reminder. But it also handles other types of text or things that you might be handwriting into it. If you write a phone number, that will become hyperlinked, and you can call that number using Skype. If you write an address, you can tap on that with a pen or with your finger or with a mouse cursor, and you can go to that address using the Maps app. You can track flights. You can look at stock prices. You can open web addresses. There's all this kind of cool stuff, and it's just like it kind of ties into this machine learning thing we were talking to before. You know, on the surface, it sounds like kind of a goofy thing to add to Sticky Notes, but then I don't use Sticky Notes. And when you think about the types of people that would use Sticky Notes and why they're writing these little notes, they're often about things they want to be reminded about or things they want to remember or things they might want to take action on. And Microsoft is kind of following through on this back-end learning that they have to make that possible in really interesting ways. So if you do have Windows 10 and the anniversary update, it's something to look for. You don't have to have a pen. It actually works fine with keyboard and mouse as well.
Well, Good Sound in the chat room asks, is there any fix to prevent the taskbar from being on top in full screen programs? This started happening after the anniversary update.
Interesting. Excuse me. That shouldn't happen. Well, I should say a normal application like the Store app or File Explorer, when those things are full screen, the taskbar doesn't get hidden. I assume what he's talking about is like a media type app where you have like a game where you have a true full screen experience. That shouldn't happen. Those things should automatically switch. And I don't actually see that myself. I don't know if Mary Jo ever runs any apps like that full screen, but you could picture, if you're watching a movie and the movies and TVs app, for example. You would want that thing to be full screen, and it does go full screen for me, so I'm not sure what to say there. Sorry.
JC Calhoun wants to know what the holdup is on more Edge extensions.
Probably the popularity of Edge.
There's some new extensions in the latest Fast Ring preview, right?
Yep. There? Yeah, there were 3 more added to the to the fact that this is, and actually they're available to everyone. I think if you're on the anniversary update, as long as you have the links, you can actually go find those.
Well, for the taskbar question, MVP Eric says taskbar on top bug can be fixed by turning on auto hide and then turning it off again. So turn it on, the old turn on, turn it off again.
Right.
Fix.
It fixes a lot of things, right?
Yes.
I have a question from Twitter here. Wolful says, Skype Teams only for Office 365, or will there be a free version? And if so, would that be like GroupMe? So Skype Teams is something that the Skype team is building to take on Slack. People have seen it. I think Brad has seen this in the flesh. I have not seen it, but I've read about it and seen bits and pieces about it. And a lot of people thought Microsoft would talk about Skype Teams at Ignite last week. They are not talking about it yet because it's not ready. I talked to one person who said they saw it and said totally not ready for prime time yet. We've heard through Brad that the beta of this is likely in November. And so the word on the street right now is Skype Teams is going to be part of Office 365. Might there be a free kind of freemium entry-level version? Maybe. We don't know. I think it would make sense for Microsoft to do a free version and then say, and if you want more features, you should upgrade to Office 365 to get them. But we don't know yet. We don't really know how they're going to package that.
Brad just published a story today about this on Petri.com, by the way.
Oh, good. What did he say? Anything new on how to get it?
I don't actually read anything Brad writes.
Okay. Good to know.
Well, let's hope he doesn't listen to this, so then he doesn't know that.
And he doesn't listen to the podcast, so there's no worries there.
Well, do you use Skype at all, either of you? I mean, not Skype, Slack.
Slack. I've used it. I just find it really draining. I find it like, I know it's supposed to be make you more productive, but I feel like I always need to be involved in chats and always on, even though you really don't. So to me, it's like even more annoying than instant messaging or DMs on Twitter. It just feels like, okay, I know some people find this as a great productivity tool, but for me, I was like, not so sure I would use that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's funny. Most of the people I'm on Skype with, like Mary Jo and Brad, actually, Raphael, whoever, these are people I want to talk to. So for the most part, when I'm pinged during the day, I want to talk to these people. It's fine. But I do know because we've got a lot of work projects coming up, when you get these constant kind of ping, 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 from work-related things, it can really, it's amazing how that can so quickly escalate from mildly annoying to I am about to hurl my computer out the window.
Yeah, especially if you start getting into the GIFs in Slack.
Yep.
It's just...
I mean,
when
it's
you start
fun.
discovering how to mute threads and
it's fun to connect through that kind of stuff, but it's also kind of a time waster, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
I have one more from Twitter. Dennis Swart says, do you think the issues happening in Windows 10 anniversary update are due to the insider program not being representative of the Windows population? I do not.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm not sure what I would attribute it to, but I feel like the insider program, maybe, and I should say first, I'm not in the insider program, but I think maybe Microsoft needs to be more directive in asking people to test things specifically if they don't already do this in the insider program. Like, hey, we want everybody to connect their Kindles to your Windows 10 insider build to see what happens.
They actually do have little challenges that are sort of like what you just described.
Yeah, those quest things they do, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I have to wonder. I think there's something wrong with the process. There's no doubt that Microsoft has what is probably the most incredible process for gathering feedback from multiple channels, triaging it, trying to figure out what the most important problems are and all that kind of stuff. And yet, you see these things. The webcam issue I alluded to earlier was caused by an engineer at Microsoft seeing a problem with Skype and determining that the best way to fix this was to just not allow a certain kind of video codec to work anymore. This happened without any sort of meeting or people making a decision, bubbling it out to users to let them know this was happening. There was no discussion at all. It just kind of happened, and that's not the insider program per se, but it speaks to the sort of the broader system that's in place to ensure reliability of updates and so forth. And so Windows Update is part of it, but and we don't really know how many people are actively doing this, on what the diversity is of the systems, what feedback they're giving and how Microsoft is actually replying to it. Although we see some of that obviously in the feedback hub. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's other parts of the process.
Well, we will answer a couple more of your questions after the break, and I think that you guys have a couple more tips for us too. But first, I want to thank FreshBooks. They are a sponsor of this episode. If you are a freelancer and you want to get to doing your work and you don't want to spend a bunch of time doing all the accounting and dealing with all that stuff and all the billing and tracking people down, you are going to want to try FreshBooks. They've created a super intuitive tool that makes it easy to create and send professional-looking invoices in less than 30 seconds. There's no formatting, no formulas, just really simple, clean, and professional-looking invoices. You can add your own logo, your own color scheme. Your invoices will reflect your brand. And when you send out an invoice, FreshBooks can show you if the client has seen it. FreshBooks' all-new version of their cloud accounting software has been redesigned from the ground up and custom built to transform how you, freelancers and small business owners, deal with your day-to-day paperwork. Getting started on FreshBooks is super simple, even if you're not a numbers person. Actually, especially if you're not a numbers person. Set up online payments with just a couple of clicks and get paid up to 4 days faster. Their super handy deposit feature allows you to invoice for a payment up front when you're kicking off a project. And your clients will appreciate being able to pay by credit card straight from their invoice. FreshBooks has also revealed other features to help keep you organized and streamline the business side of being a freelancer or a small business owner. That way you can get to your business. That's why you got into this in the first place. Their redesigned dashboard has been curated to answer the most important question: how is my business doing? You can know at a glance what is owed, what's overdue, and whether you're in the red. The notification center works as your personal assistant, telling you what's changed in your business since your last login and what should be dealt with, like overdue invoices. FreshBooks also automates late payment email reminders so you can spend less time chasing clients. You can also take pictures of receipts on your phone using FreshBooks app. FreshBooks will also handle your time tracking, so when it comes to create an invoice, you'll know what you did and when you did it. You don't have to use your memory anymore. FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial to our audience. To claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/windows. Enter Windows Weekly in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Start your 30-day free trial today, and we thank FreshBooks for supporting this episode of Windows Weekly. All right, so should we get to your last couple of tips, or should we answer some more questions? What do you guys think?
We can answer some more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I saw one scroll by that was good. It was about...
I should say, we'll try to answer some more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I Am Special wanted to know why in Windows 10 email he or she deletes emails and empties the folder, and they come back into the inbox.
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say. I will say that one of the issues with using any Microsoft email client, say perhaps the Android versions of Outlook and iOS versions, there seems to be some kind of strange delay if you're using a Gmail-based email server. I see this on my account, where if you're using Outlook.com or any of the Microsoft accounts, like an Office 365 accounts, the things that you act on in the email inbox happen immediately up on the server and will be reflected wherever. And on Gmail, I've seen that that's not always the case. So I could go through things on Outlook Mobile and Windows Phone, and turn to my PC, go to the web version of inbox.com or the Gmail inbox or Gmail, and the stuff, it's still there, and so it might be related to that kind of a thing. But as far as it coming back into the inbox, I've not seen.
Same. I haven't seen that either. I use the Outlook, the Windows Mail client a lot, and there are various annoyances. Like it doesn't sync automatically for me a lot. I have to manually sync it often, but I haven't had emails that I've deleted come back. I haven't had that.
Yep.
Well, this might be another stumper, but I'll ask it anyway. Bob asks, the anniversary update has moved the power sleep reset button to a new column to the left of the pop-up menu that appears when you hit the Windows button. Is there any way to navigate to that new column on the very left with your keyboard?
Nope. There isn't.
That is an answer.
That is really irritating.
So I think, okay, let's see. Friendly Manitoba asks, instead of buying LinkedIn.
By the way, if you do want to do it from the keyboard, though, you can't do that. But what you can do is type Windows key plus X, and that brings up the quick action menu, and then you get shutdown and sign out options from there, and that's all keyboard accessible. So it's not from the start menu, but it's the same thing, basically.
Here's one where you get to just surmise. Friendly Manitoba asks, instead of buying LinkedIn for $25 billion, what should they have bought instead?
For $25 billion, or just what purchase?
Well, there's the rumor circulating that Microsoft is looking at buying Twitter, which I don't believe, or I don't want to believe, I guess. I feel like they have so many other social properties right now that are overlapping. Like they've got Yammer, and now they're going to have LinkedIn, and they've got SharePoint and groups, and I'm like, do they really need another piece of this? But somebody asked me this week, so okay, if Microsoft doesn't buy Twitter, who should? And that's another scary and good question too. I don't know.
I think Microsoft would be a good steward for Twitter. They've done a pretty good job with some of their purchases. But I also think it's one of just a handful of companies that might make sense. Google might be one that would make sense as well. Disney is one that does not make any sense. I know there's some other companies.
Well, Salesforce is rumored also because they didn't get LinkedIn, I guess, and they want a way to kind of get the data that Twitter gathers, and also, use Twitter as more of a customer support channel for what they do with CRM. Right. I don't know. I'd be scared of bottom.
Twitter could be another avenue of, for machine learning, right? A place to gather information. I mean, it could make sense there.
Yep. Yeah, I think just some crazy billionaire needs to buy Twitter just because they want to.
Yep.
But it's interesting, Paul, that you say that about being a good steward. I mean, they have, maybe not so much with Nokia, but, with like Minecraft, for example. I think that's a good example. They've done well for them, I think.
Sure. The Nokia stuff wasn't their fault. I mean, I think that transaction will go down in history someday. It will be, covered in business schools where, Stephen Elop sold them something that he knew wasn't going to succeed. And the only mistake he made was to come with the company.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few more tips. Add duplex. Who's picking that?
Before that, though, just real quick, I remind people at the beginning of every month, everybody knows this, but Microsoft has this Games with Gold promotion on Xbox. So if you have an Xbox 360 and or an Xbox One, you get free games every month. It's October now, so just be sure to go check out that stuff because there are new games. The only one I'm super interested isn't becoming available until October 16th, and it's a 360 game, the I Am Alive game. So, but there's something in there for everyone, so just remember that. And then I usually have more app picks this week. It's been kind of slow, every week, but this week it's been kind of slow. So I do have the the Add Duplex mobile app pick of the week. I guess that is kind of a mouthful. The OneDrive Universal Windows Platform app was updated to support offline support. So we had the story last week that Microsoft is working to bring placeholders back to the shell integration part of OneDrive, which is going to be huge. But in the short term, you can also use the Universal Windows Platform version of the app to achieve not quite the same thing, obviously, but to access some of your apps offline using the app as well. So It's free. It's not included with Windows, but you can download it for free from the Windows store.
And the enterprise pick of the week, is that yours, Mary Jo?
It is. The enterprise pick of the week is Dynamics 365 Financials. This is part of what Microsoft's calling Dynamics 365. And the reason I made it the pick this week is on October 11th, which is next week, Microsoft's going to launch Dynamics 365. They're doing this at a user group conference in Florida, and they're going to be live streaming the keynote where they launch it with Scott Guthrie. If you want to get a save the date reminder for October 11th, you can go to community.dynamics.com, and you can see in the many posts there's a save the date for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 first look. So Dynamics 365 is not just financials for small business, but the piece that is going to ship first in the suite is that. It's the thing that I've talked about before on the show, codename Madeira. It's probably going to be called officially Dynamics 365 for financials. It is basically Microsoft doing financials software as a service for the first time in that form. And it's, again, one piece of what is Dynamics 365, but it will be the only piece, I believe, that ships this calendar year. So if you care about this at all, you should check out that webcast next week. I will be checking it out. It's on October 11th, and should be interesting to see how they position this, especially with their kind of souring partnership with Salesforce as the backdrop. And I've got one other calendar save the date thing. Oh, did you want to ask Dynamics?
No, I wanted to. Someone answered a question for us on Twitter, but I can get to that later. I just didn't want to forget. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. One other save the date is November 16th. Microsoft is holding its third annual Connect conference in New York City. This is a big deal if you are a developer. Every year they do this. It's a very small invite-only audience, mostly MVPs and a couple press people, but it's going to be live cast the whole way. Scott Guthrie, Scott Hanselman, a lot of the engineers who work on products like VS Code and Visual Studio, the Xamarin people for sure are going to be at this thing. And this year at this conference, which again is November 16th and 17th, you're going to hear a lot about data. This has not traditionally been a conference for data developers, but this year it will be. And so you're going to hear things about, that means you're going to hear things like artificial intelligence stuff, bots, how to make your app smart using various Microsoft technologies, microservices, probably containers, all the buzzwords you love in one conference. So you may want to check that one out too.
What was the answer to the question, Paul?
Yeah.
Somebody had asked whether you could access the power options, the power button with the keyboard. And I can't pronounce his last name. I apologize. But Adam tells me that, yes, you can, and you can hit the tab key, and that brings over the cursor to that side. Then you can move down with the arrow key. So actually, that does work. Thank you, sir.
All right. So have we missed anything? I've been trying to send you guys iMessages and stickers and stuff all day, but apparently you're not on iMessage. So.
No, we are not. Well, Paul might be. I'm not.
I'm not.
I actually have another. I have two more tips that actually were not added to the show notes in time for you to see them probably, but I can do them real quick.
Awesome.
So usually I do a code name of the week pick, but this week I'm doing a little kind of a different type of a pick. Microsoft, and I'm calling it the investment tip of the week. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should buy Microsoft stock. That is not what this is.
Should I buy Microsoft stock?
I'm not going to tell you that.
But
You're on your own on that.
But were I to buy stock, should it be Microsoft stock?
I'm not going to go there because I'm a journalist and I'm not supposed to give stock tips, insider trading, etc. But I will tell you, if you're a startup, there's a page that you should check out that Microsoft put up this week. It's called it's the Microsoft Ventures investment page. So Microsoft started 4 months ago this arm called Microsoft Ventures. It's meant to make smaller investments in startups of all sizes. And this week they put up a page on the site that I'm trying to find the name of this page. I'll look for this while we're talking, but they posted a page where it lists all the different startups that they have invested in to date. There are 13 of them. And what's interesting is going through this list of startups to see where Microsoft is spending its money. So there, when you look at who's on the list, and by the way, there are only 10 actually listed. There are 3 they've invested in, but they haven't disclosed yet. There are things like companies working in containers, social learning, messaging as a service, data mining, cybersecurity, even a smart building software vendor. So if you're a company saying, wow, I need money, I would love Microsoft to invest in my company, you should go and check out this list because it'll give you some insight into where they think they want to invest. The place to look for this is microsoftventures.com, and they've got a link there that says portfolio, and you can check out all information on all these companies and get more information on the Microsoft Ventures program. So that's my investment pick of the week.
That's interesting. And I talked to some people at Salesforce for Startups, which sounds like a little bit of a similar thing. And we talked just about because they have a whole startup valley, they call it, at Dreamforce. And, whereas a lot of people that are at Dreamforce are from big corporations. But it's interesting to think about what big corporations can learn from startups and, as well as the other way around. And it's fascinating to see who they're investing in, who they're putting time in, because that changes so often. Like the companies that are huge right now, were the companies that people were investing in 5 years ago, right? So it's good to know.
Yep. And then, Megan, I forgot to add the beer pick before.
Oh, sorry. Well, there was a little X next to it, so I thought maybe you stopped drinking beer or something and just switched to vodka.
After this week, maybe. No, so I did do a beer pick of the week. And since I'm in Seattle, I figured I should pick a Seattle beer. I made my beer pick company, an IPA, of course, because we're in Seattle. And what else are you going to drink? An IPA. Schooner Exact is the name of the brewery. And they make a lot of different IPAs, but the one I had this week was called 3 Grid, the 3 Grid IPA from Schooner Exact. And what's good about this IPA is I love really hoppy, over-the-top IPAs. This is not that. This is an IPA that's way more balanced. It's got a good balance of malt and hops. It's even a little biscuity. That's a word a lot of people in the beer world use to describe something when it's not just all juice and all hops. So if you are interested in trying a Northwest brew and you're in the Seattle area, but you don't want to go way over the top, I would suggest the Schooner Exact 3 Grit. That's the beer pick.
Ooh.
And they make a lot of really good beers.
And so you said also that you mentioned you're going to the GeekWire conference, or you're at the GeekWire conference now?
Yeah, today's the last day of it. It's been really good. Todd Bishop's organization called GeekWire, they put on a conference. This is their 5th annual one. And I was one of the speakers on the media panel at the conference, which was the opening panel. That was really fun. And they've had a lot of really good speakers here. Peggy Johnson from Microsoft. And today, Nathan Myhrvold, the mad scientist who does a lot of things with molecular gastronomy, cooking, and also patents. He has a company that some consider
I saw Dina tweeted something about Nathan Myhrvold, and I thought, man, it's 2016 and we're still talking about Nathan Myhrvold.
Nathan Myhrvold, he's like the Renaissance man, really. He does so many different things. Yeah, he wrote a cookbook that's I forget how many volumes. It's gigantic. It costs $500. It's
3 feet thick.
Yeah. And he does a lot of investments in Seattle, so it's a pretty big coup for them to get him. Yeah, it's been a really good conference. If you ever get a chance to go to this, I would recommend it.
Nice.
So did we miss anything, Paul? Anything else that you need to tell the world?
No, just that I'm going to curl up into a ball and go to sleep. Still, I've been sick since before we went to Atlanta. I'm just not shaking this. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Fluids.
Yeah.
Fluids. Not beer.
I'll drink some beer.
And an iPhone. Well, Paul, thank you so much. Paul, of course, is at Thurrott.com, at Thurrott on Twitter. Mary Jo is at allaboutmicrosoft.com and at MJ Foley on Twitter. Is that?
Mary Jo Foley.
Mary Jo Foley on Twitter. Thanks so much to both of you. Thanks for bearing with me and my rustiness on Windows.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
You did a great job. Thanks.
I assume that is Leo just in a coma? Is he actually home yet? I've been following his travels, but I didn't see if he...
He is actually home at one point, and when we were talking about something, he wandered in his vacation clothes, his hair mussed. Sure. He looked around, made sure that we hadn't set this place on fire. We might have tomorrow if he hadn't been back. But yes, he is back. He'll be back on Saturday first for Screensavers, and of course he'll be back next Wednesday.
He must be wrecked from that kind of a trip.
I know. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us on Windows Weekly. Like I said, Leo will be back next week. And you can find all the episodes at twit.tv/WW. And if you want to get the daily tech news every day, you can get that now on your Amazon Echo. Go to the settings in your Alexa app and choose the Twit flash briefing and set it up there first so you can hear Leo, Jason Howell, and I will be reading the tech news to you as you're brushing your teeth or folding laundry or getting ready for bed or whatever you do when you are listening to your Alexa. So check that out too. Thanks so much for joining us.